Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting. This meeting, the Policy Committee, as usual, broadcast to the wide world via the Magic Box, and welcome to everybody in our packed-out public gallery. I'll move to item 2. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, good. Item 3, minutes. So we don't have the minutes of the last meeting here tonight because they contained a part 2 matter, which has actually become public today. But clearly the minutes will have been published just over a week ago. So we'll bring the minutes to the next meeting instead and proceed on to item 4, petitions and questions. We have no questions, but we do have one petition. And we have online Callum Harling to... Well, we'll wait for him to answer. Like, who wants to be a millionaire? Okay. Hello, Mr. Harling.
Hi.
Hi, Jason Brock, Chair of the Policy Committee. You're presenting Mike Harling's petition this evening. You have up to 3 minutes to do so. So in your own time, over to you.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, my name's Callum Harling, and I'm here to hand in this petition to improve road safety on King's Road. Combining the online and paper names, there's almost 100 people that have agreed the action is necessary. So King's Road, up to and including Cemetery Junction, has one of the worst accident records in Reading. For the last 5 years, the data that's available, there have been 2 deaths, 11 serious accidents, and numerous minor incidents where someone's been injured and police have been called out. And you've had Green Party councillors campaigning on this issue for many years as well. The accidents can be broken down to 3 categories. So you've got, first of all, there's accidents at the pedestrian crossing where cars fail to stop or people wandering to the road without looking. Second of all, there's been a number of accidents involving vulnerable road users such as cyclists in the bus lane and vehicles turning across the bus lane, not noticing the cyclists and crashing into them. And then third of all, there are incidents that fall outside of those 2 as well. So yeah, the petition is just to sort of say, hopefully it's possible to take measures to reduce the number and severity of accidents in the first 2 categories. For example, a short section of 20-mile-an-hour speed limit like there is on Wokingham Road outside Alfred Sutton Primary School would help ensure that any collisions are at a slower speed. Additionally, the junctions of King's Road could be reviewed, and Kingsgate Street, for example, which is currently a cul-de-sac accessible from King's Road, could be closed off at the King's Road end and reopened at the Orts Road end. The very least would eliminate one of the opportunities for vehicles to turn across the bus lane. So yeah, please with the lead councillor, listen to the people that signed the petition and the Green Party councillors who have been campaigning on this for years, and to please commit to looking at what can be done to improve road safety at Accident Black Spot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harling. Now, Councillor Ennis isn't here this evening, so I'll read the response on his behalf. So he says, I thank Mr. Harling for his petition. Reading Borough Council and Thames Valley Police have a close working relationship regarding incidents on the highway involving any casualties. Where serious incidents occur or those involving fatalities, council officers are often involved in aspects of the police investigation process. The council also receives police data on accidents involving casualties, which is analysed and may be referred to, if appropriate, in reports to an appropriate council committee. This council will review the results of police investigations that are shared with us and the supplied summary data to consider whether there are any patterns and specific factors or causes where reasonable engineering solutions or highway alterations could be considered to reduce the likelihood of recurrence. However, this is not always the case, particularly where incidents are occurring for reasons that are outside of the reasonable control and influence of this council. This council is aware of and concerned by the relatively high number of incidents along King's Road. It would not be appropriate nor permissible for the council to share or comment on details and casualties of these incidents in a public forum, even in a summarised format, due to the sensitive information that is involved and the likelihood of causing upset to relatives and friends of those persons involved. From the nature of the incidents and summaries of police investigations, it is challenging to identify reasonable engineering solutions that could be effective in mitigating future accidents. However, the council are continuing to work with Thames Valley Police. It is important that any potential solutions directly address the probable causes of incidents and that such alterations would not introduce new or additional hazards in this area. Any necessary and appropriate reporting on this subject will in all likelihood be addressed to the Council's Traffic Management Subcommittee, and I will add to that in view of that, I'll ensure that the Chair and the Vice Chair of the subcommittee receive a copy of the petition and indeed of this response. So thank you very much for the petition, Mr. Harling. Appreciate you coming along to present it on behalf of Mike, and we shall proceed onwards to agenda item 5, which is Brighter Futures for Children, appointment of external auditors. I have Darren Carter to present.
Thank you, Chair. This is a fairly straightforward report. As per the Articles of Association agreed between Reading Borough Council and Brighter Futures for Children, the appointment of external auditors is a reserved matter that requires the consent of Reading Borough Council prior to appointment. So this report is proposing that Buzzercott LLP are appointed as the new external audit firm for Brighter Futures for Children for an initial 2-year period commencing 2023-24 and 2024-25 financial statements.
Thank you very much, Director. If you just flick your mic off for me, I think it is a very straightforward report indeed. Be surprised if anybody had anything on this, but was there any? No. So we're all agreed to the point. Yes, wonderful. What more could we ask for? You may as well stay at the front as well, I think. And we'll move to item 6, establishment of a joint committee, Berkshire Prosperity Board, and the Chief Executive to present.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is seeking Policy Committee's agreement to recommend to Council the setup of a joint committee which is comprised of the 6 Berkshire local authorities and to be known as the Berkshire Prosperity Board. The drivers for setting up the joint committee are threefold: to enable delivery of the functions of the local enterprise partnership, which are transferring to local government from April 24, to enable funding which was previously delegated to the LEP to come to the local authorities, but it is coming on a wider geographical footprint than individual local authorities. So that joint committee will enable the funding to transfer to Berkshire in its entirety. And then in recognition that by working collectively, there's the potential to increase leverage both with partners and with business, and to therefore improve economic benefits for all of the residents of Berkshire. The benefits of setting up the board and the joint committee are set out further in paras 319 and 320. And Appendix A to the report sets out the draft functions and procedure rules for the joint committee. The committee will be a decision-making body within the remit of those decisions delegated and functions delegated to it, and the decisions of the committee will be binding on each of the authorities. However, important to note that the authorities will retain their own sovereignty and key decisions will need to be referred back to each of the individual local authorities for agreement. Details of the management of the joint committee are set out in Appendix B. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Again, I think relatively straightforward, although quite a novel departure for us here in Berkshire. I mean, heretofore, that partnership working and county-wide collaboration has been rather coordinated or a little driven even at times by the local enterprise partnership, but with a change in their status moving forward, it seems necessary that we would create a new structure that allows us to still get the things which are very good out of the old arrangements, introduce some new ways of working with perhaps a bit of a closer political interface between the 6 unitary authorities, but in a way that we hope will be mutually beneficial to all 6 unitary authorities and prevents us from each individually trying to create something that would be just simply much better and more effective and more efficient if structured at the Berkshire level. So quite a sort of tame start, I suppose, as a joint committee, but maybe it's something that can grow a bit with time as new opportunities become available, particularly around new funding, as government might present itself. Did I have any wish? This will go to full council as well, I should say. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. On the basis of strength in numbers, this is a good thing. We fully welcome it. And what I would like to see is that the expertise that is within the LEP, the existing LEP, is maintained. As I understand it, the 6 authorities can commission the LEP as a provider. So if anything, not only is it strength in numbers, but we can still utilise that expertise that exists within the county. So we fully support this.
Thank you. I've just got a question about how would it work if, say, a binding decision had been taken, but one council failed to pass it, to approve it? This sort of balance between the sovereignty of the councils and the binding nature of decisions taken by the board. Could you envisage any sort of problem arising?
Yes. And I think that there are quite a few governance elements that will need to be worked out down the line. So as things currently stand, anything which is considered a key decision by any one of the 6 councils would be referred back to that council as a key decision. So it might be that it triggers the threshold in all 6. So all 6 have to consider it as a council as well, but it might be that it only triggers the threshold in 1 because everybody's got a slightly different definition. It's quite a messy state of affairs, I think, and it's something that I wouldn't be alone in sort of thinking this could be problematic with time, but it was the safest possible avenue at the moment in order to get the thing off the ground and to try to foster and encourage and develop that sort of partnership working between local authorities that you have to remember have had a pretty major set of political changes in recent months. So I think it could prove problematic. I think with good ways of working, hopefully we can overcome that. But like all things, it would be open to review over time, I think, as well, unless there's anything the Chief Executive wanted to add to that answer.
No, thank you, Chair.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think I agree, Councillor Mitchell. I mean, retaining the expertise we have in the LEP is really important. I think this is the best avenue available to us that gave us a way of commissioning the LEP to do the work that it does best, still for the benefit of residents right across the county. OK, so I assume since there's no dissent that we're agreeing this unanimously. Yes, yes, wonderful. Great. That takes us then to item 7. The review of polling districts and polling places, and we have the monitoring officer, who's also the acting returning officer, to present.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to present this report to Policy Committee tonight. It's a report which is going to be also taken to Council on the 19th of March. The main purposes of the report are to feedback on the consultation responses which we had before Christmas in relation to the polling districts and polling places review. We had to have the review because of the change to the parliamentary constituencies, and because they were undertaken, that review was undertaken on the old ward boundaries, it has created some anomalies which have been set out within the report. So we've had to create some new polling districts in Battle and Norcott to account for that. And we've also had to make some amendments to how people vote in the polling districts in Redlands and Catesgrove wards, which is set out as well. I've also set out in the report some of the matters which have been consulted upon in relation to various polling places and changes which have been considered necessary, either because of changes on the ground with the availability of the stations or the preferences of councillors and representations made by members of the public. So all those are set out. Just to advise councillors of a couple of items. First of all, an apology in relation to the reference to the data from the Disability Access Forum, which should have been available for inclusion within the report, but that will be available when it gets presented to council. And then further, one other update is that the report talks about the changes being incorporated into a new electoral register to be published on the 1st of March. As this report is now going to go to the council on the 19th of March, it will be the first available date for the rolling register after the 19th of March. So that paragraph at 3.12 will be accommodated. And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, and I know I've had a telephone call from Councillor White about this, just to advise councillors that when they see the register for the Parliament, the local election and the Police and Crime Commissioner election, it will be the register which is being used now to build the election, which is the current local government register. There's no practical change for any of the electors, but should we have a combined parliamentary and local government and police and crime election in May, then we will have to update the registers based on the version which will be coming to you in March. Hope that's not too confusing.
Depends how much you've paid attention, I suppose, to how registers and polling districts and the assembly of these things works. But did anybody have any questions, any queries, any comments? No, wonderful. In which case, going forward to the March council meetings, we're all agreeing that unanimously, yes? Wonderful, thank you very much. Moves us on to items 8, 9 and 10, which we'll take collectively as part of the budget progressing to council next Tuesday. We have the Director of Finance to present.
Thank you. The 2024-25 budget has been developed over many months with input from hundreds of people across Reading. I want to put on record my thanks to everyone who has contributed. And that includes the 661 people who responded to our budget consultation exercise, a big increase in responses from previous years. Report number 8 sets out the 2024-25 budget and the 3-year medium-term financial strategy. Report number 9 sets out the capital strategy, and report number 10 sets out the treasury management strategy, including the minimum revenue provision policy and the annual investment strategy. The local government finance system is broken and the financial resilience of all councils is under strain. In November 2023, the Office for Budget Responsibility, in their report published alongside the autumn statement, reported that since 2010-11, local authority spending has fallen from 7.4 to 5% of GDP. And it falls further in our forecast to 4.6% of GDP in 2028-29. Given local authority statutory duty to provide a range of services where demand is likely to continue to grow, for example, adult and children's social care, pressure on local authority finances and services will continue. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, in their analysis of the autumn statement, reported that unprotected public services, including local government, will see a cumulative 13% cut in day-to-day spending, including the impact of inflation, between 2025 and 2029, which is broadly in line with the austerity cuts in 2010 to 2015. Now, the most visible manifestation of these pressures has been the number of councils issuing Section 114 notices. 12 Section 114 notices have been issued by 8 different councils since 2018, compared to just 2 over the previous 18 years. We're also seeing a significant increase in the number of councils implementing strict spend controls to avoid the need to issue a Section 114 notice. Some of those councils will have made poor financial decisions in the past that are contributing to present difficulties. But what we are now seeing is good councils struggling due to a combination of factors, most notably the cost and demand pressures in social care. Reading Borough Council remains financially stable for now, but we're not immune to those national issues. As a result, the focus of this year's budget planning has been on maintaining financial stability, with budget increases focused on those areas of spend where increasing costs are unavoidable. The budget report proposes a 2.99% increase in council tax, plus another 2% for adult social care, so 4.99% in total. This equates to £1.64 per week for a typical Reading household. We're also getting the minimum 4% increase in funding from central government. So with a 4.99% increase in council tax and a 4% increase in government funding, some people might be asking why so many councils are struggling financially. Well, to put it simply, our costs are increasing at a far greater rate than our funding. In Reading, we've had to add £1 million to our homelessness budget and another £1.1 million to waste disposal. Budget pressures are even greater in the social care sector, where the cost of caring for older and vulnerable residents is increasing by £5.5 million, and children's social care, where there's a £7.4 million increase. The pressures in children's social care are particularly challenging. If we look at the national picture, there was a 23% increase in the number of children looked after over the 10-year period up to 31st of March 2023. In Reading, we've seen a 10% increase just in the last year alone. And the cost of those placements is increasing dramatically. In 2018, there were just 120 placements in England, costing more than £10,000 a week. By 2023, that figure had risen to more than 1,500, and I can guarantee it's far higher today. So we're experiencing very similar cost pressures, which is why the 2024-25 budget includes a proposed increase of £7.4 million in the Brighter Futures for Children contract sum. However, I remain concerned that the number of children in care is continuing to grow, so that even this might not be enough. I've therefore made provision in earmarked reserves to mitigate that risk. As I said earlier, Reading Borough Council remains financially stable, but if the public sector spending cuts outlined in the autumn statement are implemented from 2025 as intended, or if the cost pressures continue to increase at the current rate without new funding streams, then we, along with the rest of the local government sector, face the very real prospect of having to make large-scale spending cuts in future years just to balance our budgets. In the budget reports in front of you tonight, Policy Committee is asked to recommend that Council approves the 2024-25 General Fund and Housing Revenue Account budgets, the Capital Programme and the Medium-Term Financial Strategy as set out in Appendices 1 to 10, noting the following. The Council's General Fund budget requirement of £167.9 million for 2024-25 and an increase in the Band D council tax for the Council of 2.99% plus an additional 2% adult social care precept, representing a Band D council tax of £2,016.88 per annum, an increase of £95.86 on Band D properties. The proposed efficiency savings of 3.99%, an additional income of 3.9 million and an additional income of 0.8 million in 2025 that is required to achieve a balanced budget. The overall savings proposed within the MTFS of 8.5 million and the 3-year growth changes to service budgets of 32 million. The budgeted net drawdown from earmarked reserves totaling 3.1 million. The housing revenue account budget for 24-25 of £54.1 million, with a proposed increase of 7.7% in rents. The allocation of £99.3 million dedicated schools grant. The General Fund and HRA capital programmes totalling £190.5 and £142.6 million respectively, and the proposed fees and charges schedule. In the capital strategy, Policy Committee is asked to note the updated action plan in Part C of the capital strategy. In the Treasury Management Strategy, Policy Committee is asked to endorse the Treasury Management Strategy Statement, the Capital Prudential Indicators, the Minimum Revenue Provision Policy, noting the potential requirement for a revised MRP policy to be brought forward once the outcome of the consultation has been announced, the Borrowing Strategy, the Annual Investment Strategy, and the Prudential and Treasury Management Indicators. Policy Committee is requested to recommend these reports to Council for approval next week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Thank you to the effort that all officers have put into the construction of the budget. We will obviously have a great many hours to debate this in great detail next week, next Tuesday at the full council meeting. So I'd move, as I always do, that the question now be put.
I'd like to second that motion.
Wonderful. So moved and seconded. So I will put it to the vote that the question now be put. Please show hands. Thank you. So we'll move to the recommended actions and vote on those. Those in favour of the recommended actions. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Takes us to the end of the business for the evening. Thank you, everybody, and see you at council on Tuesday, if not before.